The joke slipped out of his mouth on a tired evening, the kind of careless sentence people throw into the air without realizing it might come back carrying the weight of destiny. At the time, it meant nothing. It was said with a half-smile, a shrug, and the assumption that tomorrow would look exactly like yesterday. But the next day, when she stood in front of him with red-rimmed eyes and a trembling sense of hope, everything he thought he knew about his life began to crack open. Before the story truly begins, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet ways ordinary people can change each other's lives, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Matthew Callahan lived in a modest apartment in Columbus, Ohio, the kind of place that always smelled faintly of old carpet cleaner and burned coffee. He worked long hours as a maintenance supervisor at a distribution warehouse, a job that paid the bills but drained the color out of his days. At 36, his life felt like a series of routines stitched together by exhaustion. He woke up before sunrise, drove the same cracked highway, ate lunch alone, and came home to silence. Faith had once been central to his life, but after his parents passed within 2 years of each other, prayer had become something he postponed, like a letter he never quite finished writing. He met Hannah Brooks at church, though neither of them attended regularly anymore. It was a small community church on the edge of town, the kind that survived on potlucks and volunteer labor. Hannah sang occasionally during Sunday service, her voice soft but steady, like it came from a place of endurance rather than confidence. She was 31, recently divorced, and carried herself with the careful posture of someone who had learned not to take up too much space in the world. They began talking after services, then occasionally grabbing coffee, then slowly sharing pieces of their lives in quiet corners of diners and parking lots. Matthew noticed things others overlooked. The way Hannah flinched when her phone buzzed unexpectedly. The way she always offered to pay, even when she clearly didn't have much. The way she laughed quickly, as if afraid silence might expose something fragile. He didn't pry, but he sensed a storm behind her calm. One evening, after a long volunteer day repainting classrooms at the church, they sat on the steps outside, sharing cheap takeout and watching the sun bleed into the horizon. Matthew was tired, sore, and unguarded. Hannah mentioned, almost casually, that her lease was ending soon and rent prices were rising faster than her paycheck from the daycare where she worked. She said it like it was just another inconvenience, but her hands twisted the napkin in her lap until it tore. Matthew, without thinking, tossed out a sentence meant to lighten the mood. He joked about how she could always move in with him, said with a laugh and an exaggerated shrug, the way people say things they don't expect to be taken seriously. Hannah smiled, but it was the kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The moment passed, or so he thought. That night, Matthew lay awake longer than usual. The joke replayed in his head, bumping against something uncomfortable. He told himself it was nothing, that he was overthinking. He prayed briefly, a half-formed prayer asking for rest, then turned toward the wall and slept. The next afternoon, Hannah showed up at the warehouse during his lunch break. She looked different. Her hair was pulled back hastily, her eyes swollen, her shoulders tense as if bracing for impact. When she asked if they could talk, Matthew felt a strange tightness in his chest, like the air had shifted. They sat in his truck, the hum of forklifts echoing in the distance. Hannah explained, slowly and carefully, that her situation was worse than she had admitted. Her ex-husband had stopped paying the agreed support months ago. Her savings were gone, swallowed by medical bills from a stress-related illness she never talked about. Her landlord had given her 30 days' notice. She had spent the night before sleeping on a friend's couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying his words over and over. She asked if the offer he made, the one he thought was a joke, had any truth in it. Matthew felt the ground shift under him. He had expected many things from life, but not this moment. He thought about the risks, the complications, the way people might talk. He thought about his quiet routines, his solitude, his carefully managed loneliness. And then he thought about the way Hannah's voice trembled when she spoke, about the God he claimed to believe in, about the verse his mother used to quote about entertaining strangers and discovering angels unaware. He didn't answer right away. He asked for time, drove home in silence, and sat on the edge of his bed with his head in his hands. He prayed more honestly than he had in years. He admitted fear. He admitted selfishness. He asked for wisdom, or at least courage. By evening, his answer was clear, even if it scared him. Hannah moved in the following weekend with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box of books. Matthew cleared out his spare room, bought new sheets, and tried to act normal. The first few weeks were awkward, filled with careful politeness and unspoken boundaries. They shared meals but not meals together. They passed each other in the hallway with polite smiles, both pretending not to notice the weight of the situation. Slowly, something shifted. Hannah began cooking dinner as a way to contribute, filling the apartment with warmth and familiar smells. Matthew fixed a broken shelf in her room, then stayed to help organize her books. They started talking in the evenings, not about their problems at first, but about childhood memories, favorite hymns, and the strange comfort of shared silence. Matthew learned about the emotional scars Hannah carried, years of being told she was too much and never enough at the same time. Hannah learned about Matthew's grief, how losing his parents had hollowed him out, leaving him functional but numb. They didn't heal each other in grand gestures, but in small, consistent ways. A cup of coffee waiting in the morning. A note on the fridge. A prayer spoken quietly before bed, each in their own rooms. Not everything was easy. There were moments of tension, misunderstandings, nights when old fears resurfaced. Matthew worried about crossing lines, about confusing gratitude with affection. Hannah worried about being a burden, about trusting again. But every time things felt like they might fall apart, honesty pulled them back from the edge. Months passed. Hannah found a better job at a private school that valued her experience. She started therapy through a church-sponsored program. Matthew noticed himself laughing more, sleeping better, praying without forcing the words. Their shared home began to feel less like a temporary arrangement and more like a place of restoration. One evening, after a long day, Matthew sat alone in the living room, overwhelmed by a quiet realization. The joke he had made months ago had become the doorway to a transformed life. Not because it led to romance overnight, but because it forced him to choose compassion over comfort. Hannah wasn't just someone he helped, she was someone who helped him remember who he was meant to be. If this story is touching something deep inside you, if it reminds you of a moment when kindness changed your direction, please take a second now to like this video, share it, and engage with the channel. Your interaction tells us these stories matter. As the year drew to a close, snow dusted the streets of Columbus, and the apartment glowed with soft light and quiet gratitude. Hannah no longer walked with the same guarded posture. Matthew no longer felt the ache of emptiness when he came home. They were still learning, still careful, still growing. But something sacred had taken root between them, built not on a joke, but on a choice to say yes when it would have been easier to say no. Before the story ends, I'd love to hear from you. Please comment below and share your thoughts or a moment when someone's unexpected kindness changed your life. The offer that began as a careless sentence became a promise of shelter, dignity, and renewal. It proved that sometimes, God uses our smallest words to open the biggest doors. And for Matthew and Hannah, that door led not just to a shared home, but to a shared hope that neither of them had seen coming.